Hi, my name is Kevin Jones, and this is the Building an IOC Container module of the Java Class Loading and Reflection class. In this module, we are going to take some of the ideas we saw in the previous modules and bring them together to try and create something a little bit more practical and to give some insight into how some of these ideas are used. In particular, we're going to build an inversion of control container. And we'll use class loading and reflection to do this. Now, the container we build will be simple. There won't be too much error checking, for example. But it will show up some of the main ideas in using one of these containers. The basic concept behind an IOC container is that in our code, we can ask for a particular type of object, and the container will build that object for me. So we'll look at the object, look at the constructors on the object, and if those constructors require other types, the container will resolve those types and look at their constructors and so on and so on. So it will build a tree of objects, look at the constructors for all of those objects, build the objects and pass them further up the tree until finally we get back the object that we expect. As an example of this, before we actually get into the code itself, we're going to see how we might create an object of type meeting, and that's the meeting here. My meeting object takes a single parameter in its constructor, and that's of type iMeetingService. iMeetingService is an interface which has one method on called getAttendees, and we have an implementation of that called meeting_service. The meeting_service indeed returns this array of strings with a couple of attendee names on it. My meeting also implements an interface called iMeeting, and if we look at iMeeting, then it has the get and set properties for attendees and a get meeting method. So in my code, I'd like to ask my container to resolve something of type iMeeting, have the container build something that implements iMeeting. The something it builds will need a constructor parameter of type iMeetingService. So I'd like my container to build me an iMeetingService and then return the meeting object to me. Once I get the meeting back, then I can get its attendees and print out, for example, that list of attendees. The configuration for this looks like this. So inside here, I'm saying when somebody asks for something of type iMeeting, then map this onto a meeting. If somebody asks for something of type iMeetingService, map that onto iMeetingService. So what will happen inside main, we ask for iMeeting. The container looks inside config.json, sees that iMeeting maps to meeting, looks at meeting, sees that meeting needs something of type iMeetingService, goes back to the configuration and sees that iMeetingService maps to meeting_service. A meeting_service has a default constructor. So it will build a meeting_service instance for me, then create a meeting instance for me, passing into it the meeting_service it has just created. And inside main, we should now be able to use that meeting_service in the meeting and print out the attendees. And to prove that this works, in this instance, I will just run the application here. When I run this, it should print out the name of the attendees, and there we go, there's Alice and Bob printed out, and they come from meeting_service.java, which returns Alice and Bob. And again, to prove I'm not cheating here, if I change this to, say, Charlie as well, and go back and rerun the application, then we should now see Alice, Bob, and Charlie. So we're using the container to create the objects for me. And what we'll do in this module is to write various parts of the container to show how we use this.